Hello. If you are getting this in your email, this means that we have probably pre-approved you, or we talked about you about getting pre-approved for a home with the Moore team here at Fairway Mortgage. My name is Mark Moore, and I wanted to take a minute to send you this video. I hope you can spare 5 minutes to watch it because we feel this is really, really good information to get out there. The market right now has slowed quite a bit, and it's been as slow as it's been for a while because so many people jumped out of the housing market. They need to buy a house. They need to they've had a child. They need a bigger house. They want to move because they don't like where they live or want to live somewhere different. And a lot of that has stopped because rates have gone up so dramatically in the last couple of years. And a lot of people, like maybe yourself, have paused and said, well, we're just going to wait until rates come down because all the economists unanimously know that rates will come down. The estimates vary depending on who you ask, but somewhere between when this is all said and done in mid 2024, anywhere to 2025, maybe the low fives and even upper fours. I've heard some people say that's where the 30-year fixed interest rate is going to go. Well, what's been happening this whole time since they jumped in June, July of 2022 is a whole lot of people have just backed out of the market and are waiting. Well, inventory right now is still very, very low. We're still seeing multiple offers on properties. Not as common as it was for sure, but if the property's priced correctly, we see 2 or 3 offers come in over a course of a weekend on a well-located, good-priced home. So there's definitely still inventory out there, but not nearly as much as there will be when the rates drop and the buyers are going to come out of the woodwork. So right now we're seeing more and more where sellers are willing to negotiate. They're willing to maybe offer some seller paid closing costs. And there's just not as many buyers out right now. So the timing to be a buyer is actually pretty darn good. And people say, well, the rates are so high. That's true. If you can't afford the payment on the house you want and you just flat out can't do it, then you have to wait. But if you can afford it, but you might not like it too much, if the rates go up, fine. At least you got in now before they went up even further. But if they do what everyone's predicting, you can just refinance when they drop down. And the reason that's so important is housing price appreciation has been continuously going up. Now, the media keeps saying the median house price dropped. That has nothing to do with anything. If you're selling a bunch of houses, say between 300,000 and 2 million, and the activity at the million plus really slows down in a slow time like this, and it skews more toward lower, then the median house price will drop. But the average house price in all categories is still rising across the country, and especially true here in the Southeast. We have not seen any depreciation, and I'll show you some graphs and some stuff coming up here in a minute, but I just want to go through this so that you can understand what's actually happening. So houses are in very short supply. I'll show that to you. There's some demographic information. The millennials, the largest generation that the country has ever seen, they are hitting prime buying years for the next 6 years, and there's a lot of them. That's why they're the largest generation, but there's between 28 and 38 years old, there's about 50 million of those folks out there. And the biggest part of that generation is just turning 32, 33, 34 years old. And so for the next 5 or 6 years, there's a lot of those people that are going to be looking to purchase homes. So housing is basically predicated on, just like everything else in the marketplace, supply and demand. There's not a very large supply of homes right now, and there's going to be a lot of demand as soon as rates drop. And all the experts are saying that they're probably going to drop early to mid 2024 and continue into 2025. So we may see rates as low as the low fives, maybe even the upper fours at that time. And all this pent up demand is going to come out of the woodwork. And then you're going to see multiple offers on properties because there's not enough supply. Things are going to be once again selling 50,000, 100,000 above list. But right now is an opportunity because that's not happening. There's a lot more ability to purchase now. And if the rates do somehow inexplicably continue to rise, yay, at least you locked in when they were 7.75 instead of 10%. But if they drop, you just refinance the house. And you bought the house while the pricing was at least much better than it is now. Somebody also said to me, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Right now. So if you go ahead and get in on the houses now, not only will you buy the house for less because there's less competition, but with the average appreciation of 5 to 6% a year, you'll buy it for 5 to 6% less. And if you take an average house price, I'm just going to say $500,000, 5% increase on $500,000 is about 25 grand. So that means that a $500,000 house this year will be $525,000 next year. And then when you look at what the payment difference is between rates maybe in the sevens and where they are, if they drop into the sixes or whatever, and you add that up over the next 12 to 18 months while you're waiting for rates to drop, it's not $25,000. So give us a call. We can talk to you about this more, but I wanted to go through that. So let's go through some graphs real quick. And I'll just try to go through these kind of quickly because I've mentioned a lot of this. But this first graph here shows that housing is seriously undersupplied. You can see the current housing supply and the trend housing demand there. The graph shows the percentage vacancy rate for homes, both for sale and for rent. And if you look at around 2010, you'll see where it went way up. There was a huge amount of homes for sale in the United States. But look where we are now at 2023, a very, very low amount of sales. And these are nationwide numbers. The next one I'm going to show you is the demographics I talked about. So this is the population for the United States. You can see on the bottom there from 1 year old all the way to 95 years old and how many people are in that. The yellow is basically the millennials. And the median first-time homebuyer age for millennials is 34. And look, if you go from that where that arrow is, it shows the median age for first-time homebuyers being 34. All those people behind it, that huge wave of the largest population we've ever had, are coming. And so that's when I talk about supply and demand, there's your demand coming to you. If we look at this next graph, demographic support for home purchases, what I want you to kind of focus on here, it does show the same. It's kind of the graph on the left is pretty much the same from the other page, population estimates by year and things like that. But look on the right, home ownership rate by age. Under 35, which is the gray bar down at the bottom, only about 40% of people under 35 own their own home. But look what happens from 35 to 44. Again, that magical 34 first home buying age jumps up. 70% of the people own homes. Well, with knowing that many people purchase a home around that time in their lives and seeing how many people are about to turn that age, where do you think house pricing is going to head? The next thing I want to show you, and I didn't talk about this earlier, is the component of net worth. It's such an important part of net worth for people in the United States. And what this graph here shows is based across the bottom is the average household income, and going up the left-hand side is the income in thousands. And if you take a look, housing wealth is shown by the orange bar, and blue is like non-housing wealth. But look what a huge percentage of the total wealth somebody has is made up from their homes. And if you look at that right next to it in the little green bars, that's renter wealth. So housing wealth and owner non-housing wealth compared to people that rent, which is in the green, at every socioeconomic level, it is so much more advantageous to own a home. We talked about a minute ago getting, refinancing when the rate goes down. But people a lot of times they'll say, I'm paying $3,500 a month in rent, or I'm paying $3,000 a month in rent, but my mortgage payment's going to be $3,500. Oh my gosh, that's a huge jump. And it is, it's a quite large jump. But what people forget is that $600 of that $3,500 payment is principal. So it's going from one pocket to the other. So you're going to keep that. The other thing that they forget is that, let's go back to that $500,000 house example I used earlier. It's appreciating at $25,000 a year. Well, let's round it down and say that's $2,000 a month. The minute you close on that home, you control that asset, and you control that asset that's appreciating at about $2,000 a month. So your $3,500 payment with $600 being principal, and you're gaining $2,000 a month in equity, all of a sudden should help you understand why owning a home is such a big deal. Not to mention the tax benefits, which I'm not even going to talk about. So this next one just shows it on a slightly different graph. Shows thousands of 2019 dollars, and then at the very bottom green line is a renter, and the top line is the homeowners. And you can see even during the Great Recession, where there was some value lost, to be sure, in their total net worth, it has basically well rebounded as we head into 2023. And this only goes through 2019. So if we had 2021, 22, and 23 in there, you'd see it tick back up to where really those people are still way, way ahead of renters, but they're back to where they were. And then the last graph I want to show you is something that I would call, don't bet against the U.S. housing market. So people are so concerned because we've had such a run up in prices that they think, well, for sure, we're going to have a big crash like we did during the Great Recession. Keep in mind what caused that crash was loose lending practices, and those went away. They were regulated by the advent of Dodd-Frank, and those lending guidelines have stayed very tight. So take a look at this graph, and this is the last one I'm going to show you. But this is the nominal percentage increase in appreciation on homes for every year since 1942. So the green indicates that it was either flat or appreciated. The pink shades are where we had a decline in house values. So you can see the Great Recession, the one time in all this time. And a lot of people say, well, look at the run up we've had in 2020 was 10%, 2021, 19%, 2022, 6%, and 2023 is forecast around 6 or 7% as well. It's got to come down. Not really. If you go back and look at like 1943, 44, 45, 46, 47, look at the run up in prices. Where's the crash? It's another, 30, 40, 50 years before we really see any negative price changes. So it definitely won't keep increasing at that same clip, but this is the data. So anyway, I hope that this helps you as you're thinking about when is a good time to buy. I would say that the rest of 2023 will be a buying opportunity. We probably won't see rates come down a whole lot by the end of the year, which will keep buyers kind of keep them out of the market. And I think it creates a great opportunity. So if you're thinking about jumping back in, call us. We can go through this in more detail. Thanks so much.